Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Wake Up. I am Ashley Escobar, the Love and Light Activator with Angelic Love and Light. I'm going to do my intro because, as always, on different platforms, I always have new people joining me and jumping in from different places within their journey with me. So I just want to give a brief little introduction of who I am, what I do, and what we are here to talk about tonight before getting started. So, as I mentioned, I am Ashley Escobar, the Love and Light Activator. I am known as. That's because of my vibrant energy and all the energy work I do. And Angelic Love and Light is my beautiful business that I am the owner of. So, what do I do? I am a holistic healer, and that makes up a lot of different titles and things within me, but I help others to create balance within their body, mind, and spirit, the whole person and the whole experience. So we are here today on the Wake Up, my YouTube channel and my podcast, to talk about healing through our trauma. So as a holistic healer, to tell you a little bit more, I'm a nurse, I'm a mother, I am a Reiki practitioner and a psychic medium. I've been awakened and a free thinker all my life, a spiritualist. I do astrology, astronomy. There's lots that make up my inner wisdoms and knowings. And I have had my own experience, as we all do. And my experience involved a lot of trauma. We all have trauma, but the depth and severity to that trauma can be a little bit different for all of us. And I have used my experiences in life to help me heal and also transform my journey. And I also give back towards that. So this is very near and dear to my heart. We all have some shape or form of trauma, no matter where we are looking at within our lives. We all have it. And so I want to start off by defining trauma and letting you know that trauma is what you experience trauma to be. Do not let somebody tell you that your trauma is not traumatic. It may not have been their experience, but no matter how small or big, your experience is your experience and it is valid. All right, number one, that's important. So I always say within the inner knowings that I help people undo and awaken their mind with is that our subconscious mind is made up of three categories that we need to really heal from. And when I say heal, I'm starting to use more specific words to help the energy around it. And healing is just transforming and growing, and I think and evolving, and that's beautiful to do. So people get hesitant. They're like, oh, wait, I'm not broken. And I'm like, I'm not claiming you are. You are whole. You have all the pieces. You just need to put them back together. So as a nurse, I know that everything healing-wise starts from within. And when it starts from within, it then radiates out to the exterior. I always use the classic example of wound healing. I've done many wound changes. And that healing starts from within. And that goes with spirituality and our mental body too. It all works together. So I'm very holistic. My views and my mindset are across the board holistic, in reference to the whole being and the whole experience. So I've used my own trauma, and I will talk about a little portion of it, to help myself heal and transform. And I use my experience to not only help that group of people, but many different people. I've combined my purpose and my passions, and I've blended them together. And I now have created my JOB, my purpose, through my gifts, my abilities, and all of that. So what does my trauma consist of? Well, some know and some don't, and I'm putting it out there for anybody new joining us. I was involved in a very physically, emotionally, mentally, you name it, every single type of abuse, but domestic violence between my ex-husband and myself. And before that, trauma started before that for me, but that was a big bulk of my trauma. And as you can imagine, that did a lot to me. And it gave me quite the experience. And I used who I was and what I was prior to then and the experience of that, and then after, to help shift and heal and transform that experience. So when I got away, I was lucky enough to be healing in a way where I don't find most people get to do this, but they are more isolated into themselves. And that's because my relationship had taken me away from everything and anything that I once loved and knew. And it was really like starting fresh with nothing, but also having to live everyday life. So I didn't really have the friends, the community, I didn't have a boyfriend. I did not choose to get into another relationship. I knew in my own head and heart that I was supposed to be doing my own inner healing work by myself. And at that point in time, I'm so thankful for that, because it gave me a healing experience like no other. So I have a lot of experience with deep traumas, and everything I help people with, it's kind of like what I did for myself and what I knew and wasn't able to do sooner. But now help make it easier for other people. And a lot of my healing started with rewiring my mindset. So we're here to talk about healing through your trauma and how we can turn our trauma, our pain, into power and use that as fuel. Thank God I was able to do that. It's just who I am in the natural being of who I am. But I know there's others who really struggle with being able to do that. Trauma can do a bunch of different things to you. And one of the things I always reference is that our subconscious mind has duality. And in that duality, we have an ego and an authentic self. And the journey of healing and transforming is to get to that authentic self and undo all of the traumas and experiences and solely focus on self. But that ego is all of the experience triggers and the experience pain and the experience that wants to hold you back and not get you to that further place in life. There is more than what you know from your experiences. Trust and believe. There was a day that I never could imagine even sitting here in the situation that I am, in the conditions I am, with what I have, and beyond a materialistic way. So there is hope. But so there's this ego side that can sometimes make it harder for people to want to heal from their pain and trauma, and rightfully so, because depending on all the different types, and I'm very empathetic, so I'm imagining all these different types of traumas coming to me all at once. And there's sexual abuse, there is losing parents, there's just, you name it. You can think of all the different types of traumas people go through everyday life. And our ego can have us so wounded that we become stuck in ego, and it kind of holds us back from wanting better for ourselves. And it's like this state of victimization. That it's like our light, our inner light that shines and glows within us through that trauma is almost put out. And we have to find that fire within us to light that light again, to shine us whole through the healing. That light's always there. That light does not turn off, but it can be dimmed. And many people have experiences like mine where your trauma damn near took you out. It almost took your light from you. It dimmed you, and it put all that pain in layers and hardened areas of your life. But I'm here to tell you, you can undo it all. You can undo it all. So when I got out of my relationship, I had a moment in the hospital bed that I'll never forget, a part of my journey. I looked at the clock, and I did not pay attention to time much. And I remember looking at the clock, and as it struck, my head and my heart had finally clicked, and I said, the time is now. That my subconscious is hearing, the time is now. Act now. You will never go back to this. And I told myself that after all of the different experiences, and something had clicked, and it was divine timing. And now the next process of this, there was a lot to, I was aware that I wanted to heal. I knew the amount of damage that I had been through and the experience that I had gone through. And I knew what it was going to take. And it was not an overnight thing. But I was ready for the challenge. I was ready to conquer it. And like anything else, I used it like what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. I almost literally would not be here today. And I said, thank you, Lord. And because I still am, I'm going to turn this around, and I am going to conquer this. And I'm going to turn all this pain and who I had become that I was not. And I'm going to use this to light my soul on fire, because I don't want this pain. I don't want the person who caused me the most pain to have any control or power over me, even after I decide to leave. And by allowing my trauma to impact me and not choose to heal, that's what I would be giving that abuser in that moment. And I knew right then and there, I'm like, no, I need to do this. I've got to do this. And nobody knows how. It's not clear as day. The world doesn't teach us. The world actually keeps you on cycles and hamster wheels to allow you not to know how to deal with your shit, how to go about it, to give you enough time to feel balanced to do it. And I got myself back in the gym. And it was this experience that it was getting back to my physical body. But in those moments, I used to have conversations and reflect and review in my head. And I was coming up with a game plan the whole entire time, and nobody knew. And I used this time to myself, an hour each day, to think about my steps and what I would need to do, and really reflecting back and connecting it with my childhood. And long story short, one of the very first moves that I knew I needed to work on was my mental body. So as I'm working on the physical body, I've got my mental body engaged, and my mental body is saying, you need to rewire your mindset, because your mindset has been brought down to such a low frequency going through the kind of trauma that you experienced, that you now need to rewire it. Because all our traumas are experiences that become stories in our mind. And I want to give you an example. So my ex many times had belittled me and emotionally abused me to the point where I used to believe some of the things he used to say about me. I owned what he told me. I was somebody who just once upon a time was not like who I was. I didn't even recognize myself. I remember thinking back and saying, if people saw who I was or knew who I was, how I was during this experience, they would be like, this isn't Ashley. And I didn't recognize myself, and I knew that, but how do you change that? I was an overall very positive, optimistic person before this experience, even with the other sadness and traumas that I had prior to that. It's just something kind of wired within me. And I needed to flip the story in my mind, but it wasn't the reality then. It was like, how do you really tell yourself everything is fine when everything isn't fine, and everything isn't rosy when everything isn't rosy? But I knew I had to believe it, like I always believed anything could happen. So I started rewiring the mindset and really focusing intentionally on changing my words, my thought patterns, pausing before speaking, and just speaking out of emotion. I started, there's something I did, and I used to not say love all the time. And I started at the end of everything saying love. And it had this like ripple domino effect in my life. my frequency started raising, and I got to a semi-good place where the mental and the physical body were working together hand in hand. And my spirituality that's always existed in me started coming back. Because our spiritual gifts, our intuitive gifts, are blocked by our humanly experience after the age of 7, and especially when we go through trauma, and we need healing to bring them back, because we have to raise our frequency so that they're stronger and we're aware of them again, because they're always there and they're in us all. My spirituality started coming back, and I just felt more myself. So I got this fuel to light the fire within me that all of you also need to use your pain and turn it into your power. Every second that I was on Jacob's Ladder, I used to say to myself, this is not harder than the worst experience that I've ever been through. For example, the worst experience within that violence. So I knew I could push on, I could keep on going. It took discipline and determination of a different kind. And so, what's the cost if you don't choose to heal? I want to point out some things and transition the conversation. When we go through our trauma and our experiences, we think we've gotten past them. We leave the man, we leave the situation, we are no longer around an abuser, whatever the case may be in your situation. Some people just are like, move on from it without talking about it, or just like, it's fine, I'll get over it. And it really, the subconscious mind does not shut off, and that's not how it works. And our parts of our body hold the energy of those experiences and traumas, specifically our chakras that I work with within Reiki. And so these experiences get stored over time, and you don't see them, you don't feel them, you may get triggers every once in a while, but you're like, oh, I can keep myself busy and not deal with this and just focus on this so I don't got to deal with this. But they come back. I know, because I had ran from so many of them for so long until I literally got the point. It was like, oh wait, you keep running, they keep chasing. So you turn around and you face them. And I said, Ashley, this is brilliant. I was on the treadmill when I had this moment. I was like, I have been asking my universe and guides to give me my next steps and my next directions, and they always did when I least expected it. And in this moment, it was in the gym. And they said, turn around and you face everything. And the second you face it, it's still going to be hard, but it's going to get smoother, a lot faster and easier. And so I turned around and I started facing all of my trauma. And for me, that looked like connecting it with, so this part of my life was in the midsection. It was stemmed from a lot of my own childhood experience, and it had a trauma connection, the trauma bond connection. And so what I needed to do, I needed to start peeling back the layers. And that's the first step. And you've got to look back to your childhood and your parents' experience and how their experience impacts your experience. Luckily for me, as a child, I had always observed so much that wasn't being said, and I felt so much. I remember my gifts specifically, how they were when I was a child, and all the things that I still know to be true, but the specific memories of childhood and when I was realizing those. This allowed me to reflect on my parents, not in a position to blame them or say that they're the fault or the reason, but to use it to help be a catalyst in my transformation. It allowed me to propel myself forward by looking at this. And there's so much more at a deeper level always there. And this is stuff that I help people work through and get through. But if you allow to be one of those people who blocks out all their stuff and just thinks that it goes away, it doesn't energetically, and energy is everything. That is your currency. Your energy makes you rich. So from a physical nurse aspect of it, What can this do? What can this cost us if we don't choose to heal through some of the traumas or experiences we've been through in life? Well, all that energy is stored, and for every energetic emotion connected with an experience, specifically a trauma, is held onto. And it can connect you to having physical disease and illness. It can lead you to have blocks that are in your life that you cannot see with the physical eye, but when you feel stuck, or you feel like there's a gray cloud hanging over you and you can't get to the next level of abundance, or where you know you do deserve and where you can get within your own journey, these are the reasons that contribute to all of that. So some of the people that are more skeptical and said, really down in their hard shit, say to me, well, why heal? Is it even worth it, Ashley? It's still hard. Yes, it is, because the alternative is worse. You are not your experience. You are not your past. You are not your traumas. From a spiritual aspect of it, I know that some people have a hard time believing this, but some of our experiences we chose or we had prior to reincarnating here on Earth. And we knew we were going to work through certain battles we were going to work through, all for our higher good, to get us, to help us in that transformation, to get to the best self, to true fulfillment, to true happiness, to peace, all things that are non-materialistic. You can create your heaven here on Earth before even getting to spirit realm by healing, using your trauma and turning pain into power. I never loved pain so much because I used it as a tool. I flipped it around like I do. I just have a very different outlook and mindset than most. And I literally know that everybody can benefit from healing through their own traumas. There are generational wounds that are healed through working through trauma. There are connections in relationships healed through working through your trauma. Why would you want to make your life harder by containing and suppressing those traumas? And so the other thing I want to talk about before we end is that a lot of people have the misconception that it's one and done. Like, you deal with it, you work through a healing session. This is a process. I never tell anybody that I'm guaranteed to heal them in 6 months. I say watch what you can do within 6 months, but I never put a timestamp on anything, because ultimately it's up to the person and what they choose to keep working at. Because certain cycles within our life are always continuous. What happens through the healing is that the triggers no longer will be there. You will have created enough balance and be so aligned and mindful in the present moment with a frequency that is raised that no longer the response is the same. So that is a surface level conversation about healing your trauma, healing through your trauma, at such a surface level. And we learn how to work at our healing through different modalities with Angelic Love and Light. We use, for example, this is really great to mention this, everything we need to heal through is a form of a release. And tomorrow is a full moon, an ending of a lunar cycle. I'm going to be speaking on that tomorrow, but in a sense, this is stuff we need to work at releasing and letting go of every time it comes up, every time it comes around. And so we use the lunar cycles. We use Reiki, a healing, energy healing modality. We can use readings for clarity and validation. We can use our natal chart for piecing the puzzles together and seeing why your personality and individual self is the way it is, because certain things make you up at a deeper level that you don't even realize, and it will make sense of a lot of stuff. There's all these different ways, and it's self-care. It's a routine within the body, mind, and spirit, but this is just the start of it, talking about it, and also becoming comfortable to be aware that we all have traumas. And when I say traumas, I like to also say experience, because some people, it sounds better to them. And tomato, we all go through stuff. We've been through stuff. It's how we choose to correct it and move forward. So if you've got some trauma that you've been through and it needs some releasing, tonight, tomorrow, use the energy of the full moon circle. Join me with Angelic Love and Light tomorrow for the full moon circle. And we will be back on another episode to talk more spirituality and holistic highlights.